My next guest is Congresswoman Young Kim from California. She's the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Workforce Development, and she's also a small business owner herself. Congresswoman Kim, it's a real pleasure to be on with you, and I know you worked with my friend Ed Royce for many years, and we've encountered each other. But I want to say, one of the things I like about the role you play, and I often think, sometimes you have members of Congress or senators who are governors or mayors. Sometimes they were big company CEOs. But how many small business people are there in the Congress you found that understand the dimensions of what small business owners are dealing with?
First of all, it's really great to talk to you, Steve, and I'm so glad that I'm part of this discussion today. Before I came to Congress, and before I worked with my former boss, Congressman Ed Royce, I was a small business owner. In the garment industry, fashion industry. I had my own showroom at California Mart, dealing with buyers and the National Buyers Week, and going into manufacturing of the ladies' wear clothing. And so I do understand what the small businesses face each and every day. And coming to Congress, I found, I don't know the exact number of my colleagues who have been a former business, but there are quite a few. Especially since I served on the Small Business Committee, anytime we have conversation in the hearings or through our, for example, a couple of weeks ago, it was a National Small Business Week, and we're holding roundtable discussions, inviting our small businesses from our districts. We are always talking about my background in small business. I ran a business here and there. So there, I can tell you, Steve, there are quite a large number of colleagues of mine that understand what the small businesses go through. And I think that's the reason why they put some of us on the Small Business Committee, because we understand that. And especially now as we are dealing with COVID and trying to help small businesses survive, keep their doors open, we're constantly working about those areas and federal programs. What can we do to make their lives a little bit easier?
Well, I'm glad you framed it that way. And I also want to say, I remember the California Mart. It's like near the 101 freeway and the 10 freeway, and you'd see it right over there on the right. So that's cool. But I guess the question about small business owners, most small business owners I know, they may care about the quality of the environment where they're working, or they may want, stability. They don't often think about what can I get from government. But, when a lightning strike comes in, like this pandemic, and creates a tsunami of effects that are very disabling. And we know a lot of businesses have not survived this. Some have innovated. But I'm interested in what is the right social contract to support small businesses in a time where nothing that has happened has been their fault, but they're struggling in these times?
Thanks for raising that. And let me first tell you, the small businesses in my home state of California, during the COVID pandemic, I think they were hit the hardest. I can tell you there were like 40,000 small businesses in our state closing. And half of those, that is like 20,000 plus, closed permanently. So hearing those heartbreaking stories of businesses closing their doors, I think we all came together in a very efficient way. We saw in 2020 Congress passing the first CARES Act to provide the immediate support they need. And we also saw unprecedented amount of federal loan programs through the SBA. I heard over and over how small businesses have come to me and told me they were the lifeline of these businesses to keep their doors open, keep their employees on their payroll, and especially that Paycheck Protection Program allowed it to happen. And so I think what our job in Congress is to continue to provide policies that will allow small businesses to continue to be creative, continue to be innovative. During the COVID pandemic, I saw, especially in my district, which is very diverse, we have a lot of ethnic communities and Asian restaurants trying to keep their doors open. And I saw utilizing parking lots, bringing tents, and continuing to serve their customers that way. But California had more strict rules than other areas. So I think we saw a lot of them, really struggling. But I think what we're trying to do is, obviously, the programs that we helped with PPP and so forth, they were very helpful. But because many of these programs were created so quickly during the pandemic, and the SBA saw an unprecedented number of loan applicants, there were difficulties in processing those. And a year later, when our committee is doing oversight hearing, we found some issues with how we were dealing with it, and we're trying to work through those.
Fascinating. Representative Kim, one of the other things I've been sort of fascinated by is how some businesses, and how all of us, frankly, were pushed more into the digital space than we ever have before. Talking to our parents, talking to our loved ones, buying, stuff on, from marketers and whatnot. And, FedEx and everything has just sort of grown enormously. But I remember working in the Senate for a senator from New Mexico many years ago, and he said, we have to help our state grow, and we're not going to grow if our small businesses are just doing each other's laundry within the state. We need to sell stuff to California. We need to sell stuff to Japan and China. And that used to be complex, and now there are platforms, there are opportunities for small businesses to say, hey, I can get beyond our neighborhood, and I can do that. And I'm interested, you're from California, and California has, not only a Pacific orientation, but a global orientation. How important do you think it is? I mean, we seem to have a struggle over internationalism in this country. President Trump pulled out of a trade deal in Asia. Joe Biden has not yet, to my knowledge, initiated any great big new trade deals. Is that hurting business? Is that harming small business and, robbing, horizons of markets for them?
Of course. Again, my 39th district is part of Southern California, which we call the gateway to Pacific Rim. Our constituents and state of California businesses rely heavily on our trades with our trading partners in Asia. Right now, during the COVID, there are containers after containers. I mean, they are just locked at the ports. The goods are not moving. The trade is greatly affected. So this hurts our businesses. It affects the supply chain. All of that is affecting. And so I'm very pro trade with our Asian allies, especially in the Pacific Rim. I think we need to continue to provide our support there. But you also talked about doing a lot of businesses online. And so many small businesses, they continue to adapt to keep their doors open. And during that part of it, that includes our reliance on doing online businesses. And this pandemic made it very clear that our reliance on technologies will only continue into the future. And so we need to embrace the new technologies in today's changing economy. And I think by doing it, we're also concerned about protecting the cybersecurity of our small businesses. And that is crucial. And I think we need to evaluate lessons learned during COVID-19 and create programs that are successful in the long term. I joined my, Democratic co-chair, Jason Crow, in introducing SBA Cyber Awareness Act. This is a bipartisan bill, and that is an initiative that would ensure small business administration to prioritize and improve their cybersecurity capabilities and report to Congress on their efforts. This is a bill that was passed out of the committee in July, so I hope the House passes that soon.
Representative Kim, I'm your latest Twitter follower, and so one of the things that I see in some of your tweets is a little bit of concern. We'll just call it a little bit of concern about the Biden White House's approach on taxes, on the economy, on debt. And, I remember being at a panel a few years ago, where they had a bunch of very, very rich, successful business leaders from the Democratic business community and the Republican business community. I said, is Donald Trump friend or foe? And every single one of them, Democrat and Republican, said friend because of a 21% tax rate. So I'm just interested in, when it comes to the macroeconomic conditions in which small businesses are operating, what are the big concerns or blind spots you have, or blind spots the White House has from your perspective, or your concerns about where policy is going right now?
Well, for example, let me talk about where we are right now. The federal government already has $28 trillion in federal debt. And we are currently looking at passing another, like 3.5 trillion budget reconciliation through that reconciliation process. And we're also talking about another 1.2, infrastructure bill. My concern when we were passing or voting on the continuing resolution just this week, and that was yesterday, actually, it was brought to the floor. It included a provision to increase or raise the debt limit. That is unlikely to pass in the Senate. My concern was this is going to pass, and we're going to add increased federal debt. We're already spending $300 billion, if not more, just to pay the interest payment on the federal debt we already have. I support continuing resolution if we cannot come together and pass a clean budget, bipartisan budget, but that is not happening. So the continuing resolution will allow our federal government to continue its operation. But the Democrats trying to include the raising the debt limit or debt ceiling is not the way to do it. I was really concerned about that. If we allow Speaker Pelosi and Democrats to move forward with this $3.5 trillion reconciliation package, our country could spend at least $5.4 trillion. And that's more spending than quarter amount that we spend in the World War II. We just cannot afford to pass a blank check that allows Democrats to settle future American generations with debt by raising the debt limit. And that's through the December 2022. So the Democrats are just playing partisan game over here because it's clear that isn't going to pass the Senate. I, again, support a clean continuing resolution to keep the government running, but that wasn't the case. Especially I'm concerned about when we are at a 13-year inflation high and our state across the nation, workers, businesses, and families, they're bearing the brunt of high costs on top of already high housing costs. And so that's what I'm fighting, and those are my concerns.
Oh, I really appreciate your candor on this, Representative Kim. Now, we have a question from our audience for you, and this question is from Cindy. Cindy?
Hello, everyone. I'm Cindy Ramos Davidson, and I am the CEO of the El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and the proud operator of 2 coronavirus relief centers in partnership with MBDA and SBA. We have been on the street since day one, finding out what our community needs. So my question to everyone today is, will there be additional capital access grants for the hardest hit minority small businesses, especially those with the lack of technology? Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Cindy. Representative?
Cindy, thank you so much for those that very valid question. We are concerned about providing more federal assistance to keep the businesses floating. The Small Business Administration has various resources and programs that are available, especially in the minority, woman-owned, Hispanic-owned, veteran-owned areas. So I would love to work with you. Please contact my office if we can be of additional resource to you. But part of the federal assistance, especially when I was talking to Steve about earlier, the heartbreaking stories of businesses closing the doors. We saw unprecedented amount of federal loan programs through SBA. We are having hearings after hearings regarding what's next for those programs and what was successful and what can we improve in order to continue to provide additional support for small businesses. One area was the Restaurant Revitalization Fund that was exhausted quickly. So we realized there was a need to replenish that Restaurant Revitalization Fund. So we did that. My focus is when we had CARES legislation passed first time in March of 2020, and then again in December of 2020, you're right. There were some funds that were unused from those CARES funds. So my focus will be really targeted. Let's use the unused funds to help businesses and get the funding out to businesses like you. Instead of raising more money, throwing money at problems is not going to solve it, right? So we need to be strategic, we need to be careful, and we need to be targeted in terms of our efforts to help those targeted, programs and businesses.
So there you heard it, folks. There is a fiscal conservative still in Congress. Representative Young Kim, it's a real pleasure to meet you. We get together one of these days. I hope you'll show me the clothing line you had in the old days. But thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate you having me.